Donald Trump's racism is well known, but what few pundits are out there talking about is his complete lack of knowledge on the issues. And that's something that's going to hurt him pretty badly in the general election. For more on this, let's go to Howard Nations. Howard, it's no secret Donald Trump obviously dominates all the headlines, all the media outlets, everything like that. But 99% of this is all focused on the fact that he is a racist. And he is. There is no denying that. It is a huge issue. But we also got to look at, what could he do as president? Because the racism is a huge part, but it's not the only part. I mean, he's a dangerous man when it comes to everything, not just, racism and immigration. So what could and possibly would Donald Trump do if he makes it to the White House?
Very interesting question. The president has one very strong card in his pocket to play, and that is executive orders. It's substantially unchecked power on behalf of the president. For example, it's used by presidents on their way out of office. It's repealed by presidents on the way into office. For example, Bush on his way out in his last 6 months, through executive orders, passed all sorts of administrative tort reform to reduce the rights of citizens to sue corporations. Obama came in, and in his first 3 months in office, he overturned every one of those executive orders by Bush, put us right back where we were in the beginning. Right now, Obama has in place an executive order about immigration to keep from breaking up families and to stop deporting families for the moment. Trump has promised on his very first day in office that he will repeal that executive order, and he can do so. However, I think Trump's real target in executive order is that he plans to overturn Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation to live up to his promise to his base to make America white again.
And what's interesting here is that Trump, he says these things, and for the most part, it's worth it to take him at face value when he says he wants to do these things. Now, the other side of it is we're dealing with somebody who has never spent a single day as an elected anything.
Right.
Never been a dog catcher, never been a House member, Senate. He knows nothing of the law. He does not know how to write laws. And that is, look, I know they have people that do it for them, but they also know how to do it. President Obama was a constitutional law professor.
Yep.
He understands the powers that he has, the powers that he doesn't have, and how to execute those. Donald Trump, the best analogy I've heard, it's the dog chasing the car, and he caught it. Now what does he do? Because look, he's got a 50-50 chance at the moment of winning, and that's terrifying. So when we look at the fact that this man has no idea how to write laws, he knows nothing of foreign policy, he knows nothing of economic policy, we're looking at somebody that is incredibly dangerous, and we might be giving him the nuclear codes.
Well, let's look at his policy on deporting 12 million illegals. First of all, you can't do that by executive order. It requires legislative action. But that fails to recognize the very important role that illegal immigration plays in the United States. There was an experience in Georgia a few years ago where a state senator carried a bill and the governor signed it to stop illegal immigration labor in Georgia. They were successful. They stopped it. It worked. The result was crops died on the vine, the peanuts, the peaches, the cotton. They could not find all those white laborers that said these immigrants are taking our jobs. They were nowhere to be found when it came time to go out in the fields and actually do those jobs. The farmers were outraged. The bill was repealed. And that's the reality of deporting 12 million illegals. And not only that, imagine the optics of going around rounding up and taking down 12 million people to be deported. It's ridiculous. Same thing with his executive order, ban on Muslims entering the United States. That won't last longer than it takes to get in front of a federal judge who will declare it immediately unconstitutional. But again, consider the damage to America's image in a world with 1 billion Muslims. He did it to appeal to the base. The primaries are over. He needs to shut up about that and move on.
Well, what's interesting is, you said imagine the optics. We've seen the optics of what happens when this authoritarian type leader comes in and says, I'm going to round up a certain group of people.
Yep.
It didn't work out very well. So Donald Trump is out here today, 70 some odd years, 80 years, I guess, after World War II. And he's saying the things essentially that we heard coming out of Adolf Hitler's mouth. It was, there are problems. Here are the people to blame, and I will take care of those people in any way I see fit. I mean, it's a different group that he is attacking, but the language, the goal is exactly the same. And unfortunately, I don't think that particular parallel is getting enough attention, because we can pull up speeches side by side and we see the same patterns in that language.
And imagine the impact that has, the optics of that on our foreign policy in dealing with other countries around the world who remember very well Hitler's rounding up of the Jews in World War II. But on foreign policy, Trump's ignorance on foreign policy is exceeded only by his egomaniacal belief that the world will bend to his will. In NATO, he wants to withdraw from NATO. He wants to remove troops from Germany. He wants to forget the lessons of World War I. We left Germany in 1918. In 20 years, they rebuilt the world's greatest war machine and brought us World War II. NATO was the product of post-World War II. And the effect of it is it controls German aggression. We have our troops in Germany. They do not have an army. And the military they have is on our side. They're economically on our side. They're militarily on our side. And it's much better to have them as allies than enemies. Same thing's true in Japan. He wants to remove the troops from Japan and Korea. He wants to let them have nuclear weapons, which is just crazy. He forgets the 20th century. Japan was one of the greatest saber rattlers in the world. In the 20th century, they were at war with Russia, Korea, China, the U.S., Australia, the Philippines, and then they're part of the Axis in World War II. There's a 57-year-old treaty that came out of World War II. Trump wants to repeal that treaty that keeps Japan in check as a military power and keeps them on our side economically and militarily. He wants to repeal that because we don't get our money's worth. Everything is financial with Trump.
And it's interesting that everything is financial for somebody who's had to claim bankruptcy so many times. I mean, again, This is a man who couldn't make a profitable casino, which is a business where people just walk in and put their money in your hands, and he can't make a profit off of that. I mean, I'm sorry, but that's pretty bad when it comes to business. But, on this foreign policy issue, the main problem that I see with Donald Trump is that it's not just that he's got this hawkish mentality. I mean, Hillary is very tough. I think she would be much tougher on foreign policy and much more willing to use force than Obama. But with Trump, it's not because he's a tough guy. It's because he's a vengeful guy. It's not about, I'm going to keep us safe. It's about, oh, they said what? I'm going to go drop a bomb. That's what's more dangerous than, just being aggressive, is being vengeful. And I think that is a huge difference. I know a lot of progressives are pointing out that, both Hillary and Trump are pretty hawkish. But no. Hawkism, not great. Aggressive vengefulness, dangerous. That's the difference there.
It's not just the Democrats, though. Trump's statements on foreign policy have prompted near universal horror from diplomats, military officers, intelligence officers, and intelligence analysts, including some Republicans. There was a group of 75 foreign policy experts that blasted Trump. These were Republicans. They blasted Trump in an open letter, calling him fundamentally dishonest and utterly unfit to be president. And it's just because it's the thin skin reference that Hillary made about him. His thin skin, you get under his thin skin, he's got the nuclear codes.
It's a terrifying thought. And to her credit, Hillary Clinton has really, pivoted, especially now she is the presumptive nominee. and she has been going hard after Trump. And, before that, while Hillary and Bernie were still, kind of fighting with each other, we had Elizabeth Warren out there who was really getting her hands dirty and attacking Donald Trump the way that he needs to be attacked. And so I think as we move forward, now that we're really in general election mode now, I think we're going to see some very harsh attacks coming from the Clinton campaign towards Trump and from the rest of the Democratic Party. I know a lot of the progressive media is uniting in their, we have to take Trump down efforts. So do you think as we go forward from here that the issues that we're talking about right now, are these going to be massive campaign issues, or is it only going to be the focus on the racism from Trump?
Well, I think it has to be policy for this reason. Hillary's going to talk about policy. She said, okay, I'm going to take Trump head on just to prove I can. But she's also going to have policy statements and policy positions. Trump has no policy positions. His policy position is we're going to repeal Obamacare. That's an example of a legislative thing that might be done. It's an interesting situation with that. The Republicans have painted themselves into a corner with their numerous phony votes that they've had in Congress. You know how many times in the last 6 years that they've had votes to repeal Obamacare. If they get the House, the Senate, and Trump, they'll have to perform because they promised it to their base over and over and over. But not one of them has anything to replace Obamacare. Now, we're not sure what it'll be, but it'll be something great. We know that because Trump believed Trump. He said so. You're going to have trade agreement policies. There are going to be policy arguments over trade agreements. Now, this is interesting because TPP, the Trans-Pacific Pact, Trump will get Democratic support on that, and he'll have Republicans against him on that because the Democrats, the progressives, are absolutely opposed to the Trans-Pacific Pact, while the Republicans are supporting it. That was a coalition between Obama and the Republicans. And Trump's already said he's opposed to it. He wants to punish China with a trade war. He wants to punish companies that leave America and go to China to make products. He says there'll be a 45% tariff when they come back into the United States with those products. This is going to drive prices. Can you imagine increasing the cost of everything made by Apple by 45%? It drives prices through the roof in the United States. So there are a lot of policy issues that will have to be part of the campaign. It can't just all be about Trump's obvious racism, but they're going to have to be real policy discussions.
And it's going to be, look, I have to say, I think the presidential debates, it is going to be a bloodbath. There's going to be a lot of tension, but I think they're going to be remarkable. And if we learned one thing from the primaries, it's that Hillary Clinton can dominate a debate like nobody else. And Donald Trump, I don't think during a debate he's ever laid out a policy. So that's going to be a bloodbath. It's going to be fun to watch. I am really looking forward to those. I got to say, I can't wait to see Hillary Clinton get her hands into Donald Trump and just do what she does best, which is be an aggressive, fighter. I mean, Hillary Clinton is so strong that I think Donald Trump is going to crumble because he's going to come with personal attacks and she's going to come with policies. And as long as we stick with that, I think that's the best way to take Trump down.
Well, Jeb Bush made a statement last week where he said that he cannot believe that the Republican base nominated a candidate based upon personal slurs and insults. And one reason he got away with it, I think everyone that he was up against, they were afraid to take Trump on because they figured, okay, he's going to fall to the side and I want his supporters. Everybody thought, well, I'll get his supporters once I beat him. And then nobody beat him, and and he got away with all of his slurs and insults. But let me tell you about a danger. If you think about one statement that he made, that he said as a businessman, I'm going to renegotiate our debt with China and other countries. If he destabilizes the American dollar, by renegotiating our debt, by not paying our debt, coming in and saying, well, we owe you trillions, but we're not going to pay it. Let's talk. If he destabilizes the American dollar, the financial ramifications in the world would be catastrophic because the dollar is the cornerstone of the world economy. Financial analysts indicate that Trump knows a lot about making money, but he's completely ignorant of international finance. That is incredibly dangerous. So he's dangerous on a lot more levels than just the nuclear codes. He could easily ruin the economy.
Well, and, unfortunately right now, we have two candidates, really. So there's a 50-50 chance. And that's why I say, once again, every chance we have to take him down, that's what progressives need to be working on right now. Because, we have to put our personal differences aside. That's the enemy. That's the target. We got to take him out. Howard,
before we leave, let's talk about one more thing that might help bring him down.
Okay.
He has also said he wants to reopen Trump University. Now, Eric Schneiderman, the Attorney General of New York, who's investigating Trump University, calls it a complete con and a fraud. It's not a university. It was a series of seminars in a hotel conference rooms designed to con people out of their savings and to maximize their debt. There's a class action lawsuit currently going on, as you know, and Judge Curiel is the judge in that lawsuit. He says Judge Curiel is unfair to him. He's made attacks on him, as we all know. The fact of the matter is the case has been pending for 6 years. It was set for trial this summer, before the election, after the convention. Imagine being tried for fraud while you're running for president. Judge Curiel moved the trial to November 28th after the election. That's the judge he says is unfair to him. Trump's lawyer says the judge is fair, and they've not filed a motion to recuse him. So that issue of Trump University, it's certainly that issue, and his response and his attacks on the judge have been a big issue. But this Trump University thing, as it develops through the New York Attorney General, that may be the very thing that brings him down.
Absolutely. And it shows us a lot about who he is, not just as a businessman, but as a man. We get to see this glimpse into who he truly is as a human being. And trust me, it's not any kind of person that we would want to see in the White House.